Okay, today the joke is on me because it was supposed to be the bear and the rabbit joke. Has everybody heard it? I've heard. I read it once and I can't remember it, so I can't tell you the joke. Sorry, the joke is on me. Sorry, I apologize. That's the way it is. You're gonna have to forgive me for that. I'll have to remember. I've got it written down here, and I was scratching my head because I had it on a sheet to bring today, but I didn't bring it. So anyway, you can think about that for a while, a bear and a rabbit. And I went in to look for it over there, and those were not it.
I know, but it's not nice.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I was finding just now. It wasn't nice. So we're not going to do that one. Anyway, it was kind of a neat joke, but whatever. We'll see it next
You
time.
can use it next time.
Next time. The lesson title is Deepening, and what I want to do today is try to have us think about our relationship with God. We do that every Sunday, but do we actually think about how that ties into what we're talking about? But our relationship with God is the most intimate relationship that we'll ever have. And sometimes we don't recognize that in our daily life, and we don't recognize that we have, actually sometimes maybe we don't even recognize we have a relationship with God in our daily life. But sometimes I think that at birth, oh, that's cute, that's Aiden.
Yep.
And when he was in NICU, I think.
Yep.
Anyway, at birth, sometimes I think, well, a lot of times actually, I'm not going to lie, a lot of times I think that we're smarter than we are as adults. Because there's a lot of reasons why, but deepening our relationship, in this talk, deepening our relationship with God is kind of simple when you think about it. When we're children, when we're babies, we are so trusting because we know everything's going to be provided for us, don't we? We know it naturally. We know it by instinct. We just know that things are going to be handled for us. And so we trust in that knowing, and we trust that that is going to happen for us. And, I have always said, and I know that I've had pushback and disagreements and all that, and that's okay. With this is I always have believed that we are born, when we're born as children, human children, that there's a reason that we cannot talk yet. And the reason is because we're a lot smarter than the people that are taking care of us. And if we told them how to do it, they might take offense. But anyway, so, it is funny, and yet it is true too, I think. So anyway, at birth, we sometimes are smarter than adults. Even as we grow up, sometimes we're smarter, because usually kids, when they meet other kids, what do they want to do? The first thing they want to do is become friends, don't they? They're not looking at what that person looks like. They're not looking at what that person's background is. They're not looking at other junk that we as adults sometimes look at. They're looking at, this is a person, I want to be friends with them. And that's what they look at. And sometimes they look at animals that way too. And some animals are okay to look at it that way, and some animals aren't okay to look at it. Like the bear. It probably wouldn't be a good idea to try to go up and hug a wild bear. Anyway, we have to think about sometimes where we are at in life and what we take as serious. I think I've told this story before, and it didn't work out well for me, but anyway, I'm going to tell it anyway. We were in a meeting once at Unity Village, and since I was in charge of these 4 departments, they would call me into these large department head meetings sometimes. And boy, at first when that happened, we were having meetings, 2 or 3 meetings a day, and I was sitting there thinking, what in the heck? I got to run the departments. You can't be in meetings all day. Oh, it's stupid, really. But anyway, for that many meetings is what I'm saying. Anyway, one of these meetings I went to, it was a larger one, and the CEO was there, and somebody said something. I don't think it was the CEO. In fact, I know it wasn't the CEO. It was somebody else at a different department said something like, and I don't remember exactly the gist of it, but it was something like, well, we should have more meetings or something like that. And I started laughing out loud. And then I stopped and I said, oh, you were serious? And she was, that lady. And so, anyway, it was the last department head meeting I went to. Obviously, there was a reason for that. But anyway, sometimes we take things as adults, take things a lot more serious than we should. Because, when we talk about deepening our relationship with God and an individual on a level one-on-one, we're not talking about a lot of things in church that sometimes we think of as church. You know, as adults, we have to abide by this and that and abide by God's rules or we're going to hell. You know, that's not the way to look at God's relationship with you. Your relationship with God is like a child. Even Jesus said, let the children come to me. You know, and that is because of the innocence. It's not because of, I've got these rules that I know God wants me to live by. It's because if we go as innocents, then I'm here. It's kind of like, it is like the word surrender when we're talking about religion or spirituality. It's not waving a white flag. It's letting go and being open to everything, all the possibilities, instead of saying, I've got the right way or the highway, right? So when we understand that, and when we're with God, we can have things, when we're having that relationship with God, we can have that relationship that says, you know what? If I stop and listen, there's a better way to this. And so we have to stop and listen. And sometimes that might lead us to something scary as adults, and that is doing something different with our life or in our life. And that can kind of scare us away sometimes. But in our relationship, as far as spiritual relationship, deepening our relationship with God, Fillmore had an idea about that. He said this: in the study of things pertaining to religion, and I think today if he was talking or if he was writing this, he'd say spirituality, we should keep in mind the three activities of consciousness: spiritual, psychical, and physical. The three areas: spiritual, psychical, and physical. The spiritual is the realm of absolute principles. Okay, we all understand that. We know that and this is kind of like when Fillmore talks about principles, he's talking about laws essentially. And it's not that we need to learn the law. I'll go back to what I was saying a minute ago. We need to learn the laws, and this is the way it is, and that's the way it's supposed to be, and that's the way it's going to be. It's about the natural laws. Like we look at gravity and on Earth, and we sit here and we're walking every day. Are we worried when we're walking out to our car somewhere that we're going to start floating up in the air? No, we don't worry about that. We know it's just a law, and we're going to abide by it. And it's just like a lot of things that we have in our life that are laws, like gravity, that we can use to our benefit, not as a disregard or I'm going to use this to twist it into some negative thing, just as the way things are. And so that's what we're talking about, laws, when we're talking about principles, and a little bit more than that actually. But anyway, the psychical is the realm of thought images. So anything that we have thought of, anything that we are thinking of in our mind is a thought image. And whether we decide as a person, because it does include our personality here, it includes both the divine and the personal. Personality is we need to recognize that thought and see if that's something that we want to keep in our mind. Do we want that thought to come back up later? And I know a lot of people think that, you have to work things out, and you do certain things, but there are things in life that may have been unpleasant that you've experienced that you can rewrite your history as far as not having to go back and live through that again to do it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you got something that's bothering you that your parents did to you, and you're 50 years old right now, and your parents did something to you when you were 10 that you didn't like, and you're still living with that, hating your mom and dad for that, get over it. I'm sorry. But, you need to reframe that, whatever you need to do to make it so it's not a part of your life in a negative sense as it is today. I heard a guy say, I think it was just this morning actually, say something about, when a child confronted his parents and said, "You were terrible parents, you did terrible things to me." And the parent just responded and said, "I did the best I could at the time, and looking back at it now, it may have been terrible things, but that's the best I could at the time." And that's not making an excuse for your parents, not them making an excuse for themselves. We can just take it as the truth, as not with capital T, but the truth from their perspective at that time. I don't know about you, well, maybe I haven't, but anyway, I've made a mistake or two in my life. But in looking back at those mistakes doesn't mean I have to go, and I know that the AA really promotes this, but it's not necessarily exactly to go, I mean it is an AA, but it's not exactly. The point is not exactly this, to go back and to make amends. And what I like about AA when they're talking about that is they say, when you're going back to make amends, doesn't mean that that person is going to accept your apology or whatever you use to make amends and say, oh, it's okay, we're friends now, we're best of friends now. That's not the point. The point is for you to release that and to do something, maybe necessarily in the physical form, to say, I really didn't like doing that. I mean, I shouldn't have done that. Let me put it that way, if I can say it. I don't know if I'm using the right words. But I shouldn't have done that, and I am sorry. It's kind of like the person that goes to a church where you have to come down and kneel every Sunday and thinks they're absolved for everything that they've done the week before and before that, and then go do the same darn thing that they have to be absolved for the next Sunday. That's not sincerity. And if you do that in AA or anybody, what I'm talking about here, that's not getting rid of it. That's not doing it. Going back and saying you're sorry and not being really sorry, and I don't like using the word sorry, but anyway, apologizing, and if you're not sincere, it doesn't count. You're wasting your breath. It has to come from the heart. All these three things are combined. The third he's talking about is the physical, and that's kind of what I got to get ahead of myself, is the realm of manifestation. So if you go back and you say, well, what's holding, and you're in prayer, and you hear that from your guidance that, me apologizing to this person is what's holding me back, and you go and apologize and you don't really mean it, that ain't going to get you over the hump. You have to mean it, and whatever you have to do to actually feel that, maybe you have to experience what you did to that person some way, somehow. I don't know. But you don't have to do that. You just have to be honest with yourself and your feelings to go through that. And one way you can, and a lot of people, especially in unity, don't really care for this, but one way you can is the well-developed person, of which Jesus was, comprehends and consciously adjusts his spirit, soul, and body as a whole, and therefore fulfills the law of his being. But what I was getting to was this. Those who are on the way to this attainment have various experiences which are symbolic, set forth in the scriptures. What I was trying to get to was the Bible there. And actually I like him using scriptures because I don't know if he meant it or not. He probably did, but he probably, he would now, is say that doesn't necessarily mean the Bible only. It can mean anything that is of holy nature to you that can help you get over whatever is holding you back. And by what I mean by holding you back is whatever you determine that to be. If there's an area of your life, if it's health, let's just take health for a minute. If it's health in your life that's holding you back, what's holding you back from being healthy? Is it the doctor's diagnosis? Get a different doctor. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean about it. I'm not saying that the doctor's wrong. What I'm saying is that doctor is seeing something right now that you can, if you want to, but you don't have to, accept as the truth of you. Do you follow what I'm saying? If you get a cancer diagnosis and you're going to, the oncologist says, well, you're going to die in 2 weeks. Well, you can take that as gospel, which I don't know how you could take that as gospel, but some people do. Or you can say, God, I surrender. I'm here for you. I'm ready to heal every cell in my body. And then, by some miracle, a few weeks later, the doctor, probably the same doctor, says, well, I can't find it anymore. It's not there. And other people around you say, oh my God. They'll say one of two things. Is a miracle, which that's what it was, and if we believe in miracles per se, or they'll say, well, they must have saw something different at first. A lot of people say that. And those are the people that say they must have not seen that right at first, are the ones that are not able to, at this point in time, be able to sincerely apologize. Do you follow me? Okay, because they're denying the fact that God is involved. When we deny the fact that God is involved in our daily life, we'll live a life that is like God isn't involved. That doesn't mean God's not involved, but it does mean that you're not accepting the goodness of God for your own life. And so we want you to have the goodness of God in your life. And the way you do that is not this. Bad thoughts. Bad thoughts no matter what we're doing, where we're at. You know, Francie, I still have an issue with this, and I I say, now this is kind of going against what I just said. I say I'm trying to get over it, but when I get cut off or something in the traffic, I'll say a few choice words to that person. And Francie will say, oh, don't get so upset. And at the time, really, I'll say this too. I'll say, I don't care. I think that he's, shouldn't have done that. Let's put it that way. And that's silly to get upset over that. Usually what will happen is I'll be thinking about something different, and then it'll kind of throw me off of that, and that's what it will. But it's still, I'm not making an excuse there, I guess. But anyway, we have to be careful with our thoughts. And we have to be careful about what we keep, like I said a minute ago, in our subconsciousness. That's that middle ground that we were talking about, Fillmore was talking about in the developing man, a person, is the psychical part. So he's talking about in the realm of thoughts. All our thoughts create an image. All our thoughts are going toward manifesting something. And sometimes, if we can look at it that way, that might be the trigger for us to stop thinking of the bad thoughts. Because if we recognize that, when I'm thinking bad thoughts, I'm producing something, we might stop it.
Yeah.
And here's the problem with people who think they're bad thoughts. Think bad thoughts, is they think they can control them. They think they're funneling them. If that person right there, just like I did with that other driver, that driver might be a great person. That when you have somebody that you disagree with, you don't like, whatever, and you think, I'm going to think bad thoughts about him, and I'm gonna make him have a bad day, whatever it is, probably a lot worse than that. It doesn't work that way. It'll manifest, but not necessarily the way you wanted it to. The only thing that's universal that all of us can accept is good. It is. It's the only thing that is universal that all of us can accept, because that's what God put out there. The rest of it is that stuff that, like our free will, that allows us to think that we're a witch, a warlock, whatever we are, we control somebody else's life by wishing bad upon them. That's not true, and that will never happen. But it does manifest in some way. It could manifest in your life. It could manifest saying, I went to the oncologist, I got a result saying that I have cancer, but I'm going to release that into this other person I don't like. It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. How it works is I accept my good, and that cancer dissolves. I don't know if you were like me, but when I was a kid, my mom mainly, and my grandparent, and my grandmother, always told me that one good thought erases, I think it was 10 or 100, I can't remember, bad thoughts. However many it was, I don't know. But has anybody ever heard that before?
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. That is so true. It's true. The bad part of your life, whatever you're claiming bad, cannot withstand the good. There's no way possible. It's kind of like saying that if you're in a dark room, if you turn on a light, you still can't see nothing. That's impossible. When the light goes on, everything's lit up. It's not, and even if you have a little lamp, even if you have a little flashlight, it still shines out more than what you're just pointing it out. Unless you just got one of those pinholes thing, but you'd have to adjust it and all that stuff. It doesn't happen that way. The light always illumines everything. It doesn't illumine just one thing. So we need to release all of these. We don't need those anymore. When we can look at the facts, we can understand where we're at this time, but it doesn't mean we have to stay there. And so this is from the Bible, and so it says, finally, brethren, whatsoever, and I'm sure everybody's heard this, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. And so what Paul was, and like I say, Paul, has some beautiful writings. This is one of them. What he's saying is exactly what we just said. Think about the good things. Think about only those things. You don't need to worry about the other things. You can deal with things as they come in your life without thinking of bad things or bringing bad things upon you by thinking of bad things. So there is something, though, also that we sometimes do when we're in that state of thinking of those bad things, and it's a delusion of the mind. We delude our mind into thinking that those are true. This is really, if you think about it, bad thoughts and deluding ourselves with those thoughts is the cause of human death. We still think, well, in fact, Bill told me quite a few times, quite honest, because his mom told him this, he said, once you turn 60, your body really goes downhill. I said, Bill, why do you keep thinking that? And he said, that's just what happens. My mom told me, and boy, she was right. It may be that has been the history of your family. It may be that has been the history of humankind. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be the future. Now, I'm not saying that all of us need to think about all the things, living life forever and all that, because we may not want to. Who knows? But what we need to recognize is the fact that it is possible. Anything is possible. As long as we have death thoughts, we'll have death. As long as we have whatever thoughts, negative thoughts, we'll have it. Because like I said earlier, when you have those thoughts, they do combine in a negative cloud and rain down at some point when they get too full. It's just the way it is. But after a rainstorm this morning, what happened? The sun came out, didn't it? It's out right now. It's out very nicely. But that was a big storm, wasn't it?
Yes.
A lot of them damn negative thoughts up there, wasn't it? I'm just kidding. I don't know what those. Anyway. So we don't need to delude ourselves. When we deepen our relationship with God, we can understand that we don't have to live through negativity. We can create a new world for ourselves. And by doing so, you might say to yourself, well, what you're talking about is just kind of getting away from reality of life. And that's not true. It's not true. The reality of life is what we make it. The absolute of life is our divinely guided nature. So the absolute would be like heaven, whatever you describe as heaven. And, here again, we're getting into something where we have to differentiate. We're differentiating for not a solid reason. We're saying most people think of heaven, where do they think of? They don't think of here, do they?
No.
They think of somewhere else.
Yes.
Why? Why do we have to have heaven somewhere else? If you're a child of God, I don't know about, most fathers, not all, maybe some of them wouldn't, but most fathers are going to want the best for their child. Male, female, doesn't make a difference. They want the best for their child. They don't want them to go out and suffer. They don't want them to go out and have problems. And so God's the same way. God wants the best for you. And if we don't accept it, we don't accept it. That's up to us. So nothing is manifest, this is what we discussed about, without the mind. And there's two different, the reason I did that is the capital M is divine mind, God, if you will, and the lowercase m is our mind. If we are in a connection with God, when we're praying, at some point, if we stay in prayer long enough, we may go into prayer, thinking about what we want, what we are praying for. Yet, when we get done, when we're near the end of what we're praying for, hopefully we'll say something like this or something better, or something along those lines. And then after that, what we can do and what we should do, even though I don't want to should you, what we should do is release and listen. And it's the same thing I was talking about earlier as far as surrender. It's not surrender with a white flag. It's releasing our thoughts of a certain specific instance. Because usually when we go to prayer, not always, hopefully we'll grow to a point where we're praying because everything's going great and we want to keep going down that same road. But usually a lot of people, when they go to prayer, are praying because something is going on that they don't like, don't they? Somebody's in health situation, someone's in some other situation they don't like. Yet, if we get to a point where we're going with, like here, even during our prayer service, we have good reports. How often do we go to prayer with a good report? Not that often. Hopefully we do, but more and more. But we got to get back into that, knowing that that's what we got to do. Go into that. Deepening our relationship with God begins with being honest with our thoughts. So if we are honest with our thoughts, then we can recognize those ones in our subconscious that are negative, that are something that's holding us back from enjoying life fully today. So we have to be honest. That's good. And here in this church, joining with each other is one of the greatest things. You don't have to come to me or Reverend Francie, but join with some of your fellow people and know that you can help each other along this path. You could be experiencing the same thing. And then being accountable is part of what church allows you to do. Now that doesn't mean that when someone asks for prayer help and it doesn't go the way they're wanting, then you just jump all over and say, well, you should have done this, that. Everybody has their own path. But being accountable, recognizing that we're not moving to where we want to, means that maybe another person can give us an idea to go in a different direction to get the results that we're looking for. Other people's relationship with God is none of your business. And it is. It's none of your business. Some people all of us are on a different path, a different way. But we have to remember that all roads lead to the mountaintop. So when we get to the point where we know that we're on our road and we're paying attention to that, then we can be helpful to others, but we can never make their road for them. We can't do it. Now, your relationship with God is sort of my business, but, only if you want it to be. Reverend Francie and I are here to help with anything, especially spiritual, that you want, yet if you aren't open to that, well, here's the thing. I'll tell you. In seminary, we're taught, and I totally agree with this part of it, we're taught that we can counsel people and help them along their way, which is true. But we're also taught that there's an extent to that. There's a limit, if you will, to that. And when it gets to psychological help or something, we're going to refer you to a professional that does that for a living. Okay? Not because we think that you're psycho, but because if you're not getting over if you're not making the progress that you want to see and we want to see, then there needs to be a different path. There needs to be a different direction. There needs to be somebody else that's helping you that can do a better job. And that's true with everything, isn't it? I mean, if you're at a job and your job is to take A from this place to that place, and you're at a job for a long time, and A's still over here, what's your boss going to say? Well, you're supposed to take it over here. What happened? And he or she hears that and says, well, okay, I may or may not give you more time. If they give you more time and they come back and see that A is still here, it hadn't been moved to B, what are they going to do? They're going to let you go, right? They're going to let you go because that's the job. That's what I need done. That's what you're here for. And if you're not doing that, you need to. In our own life, if we see that happening in our own life, then we need to look at, what I'm doing right now is not getting A to B. And so I have to look at something different to do. Or else I'm not going to worry about getting A to B, right? Either forget about getting A to B or else do something different because it's not working what I'm doing now, right? And so that's not a knock on anybody. Not a knock on the business, not a knock on the person doing it, not a knock on the boss, not a knock on you for not making it. It's not a knock on anything except if you want A to move to B, you have to change what you're doing because what you're doing is not getting A to B. I don't know if I kind of went into a business kind of example there. I hope that made sense to everybody. But anyway, Unity for a long time, old times, they don't really do it very much more. Reverend Francie and I do sometimes still, would write prescriptions for people. especially in writings, they would do this. Myrtle would do it a lot, and so would Charles. But if they wrote in with some type of issue that they wanted to get rid of, then they would write them a prescription. It would be prayer. Well, there'd always be prayer with it, but there'd be other things maybe to do to change things. Okay, for any physical relationships to last, it must grow first spiritually, second, psychically, and third, physical. Now, that's how relationships are going to last the best. Problem is, usually on a human relationship, not all, but usually on a human relationship, it's the opposite way, isn't it? We're attracted to somebody physically. Then we go out on some dates and things and find out that, hey, we kind of think alike, we like each other, it's pretty cool. And then, if you're bold enough before you get married, usually it comes up before you get married and say, where are you going to get married at? And then somebody will say something. But the third thing usually is the spirituality. And it's kind of sad, really, in a way, because a lot of people can grow, even if they go from 3 to 1 instead of 1 to 3, can grow. But they usually, when they come to the spirituality side of it, a lot of people will say no when they start talking about that. That's why I've always been a proponent for saying we do need to talk about politics and religion. But, because not only is it uncomfortable for groups and a lot of people, it's also uncomfortable in the family, regrettably. I'm sure we're all old enough, maybe not all of y'all, all old enough to have parents and grandparents that never really talked about spiritual things. And usually, at least for me, what would happen was the females would go to church and the males wouldn't. And that just tells you right there's a little bit of a disconnect there. Why? Football is very important to me, NFL football. And that's one of the reasons we moved to the East Coast. We don't really have to miss it even going to church. But anyway, it's, West, you miss a lot of football going to church on Sunday morning. So we have to recognize what's important to us. As we deepen our relationship with God, we attract and allow those on the same path to join in growing our lives into the unlimited goodness that we are. And we can enjoy that goodness with each other if we allow it. But we have to allow it. So I hope that all of us can come to that point where we say, even if you have a spouse now that isn't on the same spiritual path, that we can allow that to be still a rich relationship and maybe help each other grow. Because you don't have to, just because you're not on the same spiritual path doesn't mean you have to get divorced or anything. It means that you just have to recognize where each other are at as far as us on a spiritual path and continue to be able to grow in your own sense with your relationship with God. And that way you will have a fuller, more deepening relationship with God. God bless you today. Thank you for coming. There's no song today because I forgot to get it to Francie. So I not only forgot my joke, but I forgot my song. So come on up here, Francie.
One more time.
Oh, God bless you. Yes. See, still a question mark. It will be forever, just like the joke.
We talked about a song.
We did talk about it.
Thank you for your message, dear.
You're welcome.
Even though you don't have
Oh, where did you go?
or a joke.
Yeah.
All right, it's time to bless our offering.
And we've got an exciting, sorry I went overboard on late, but anyway, we got an exciting board meeting after this. So, yes,
Yeah.
So excited.
All right.
Say this together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies this offering. God gives abundantly, I receive thankfully, and give generously. This is the bounty of God, and I send it forth with wisdom and joy. Divine love bountifully supplies and increases this offering. I give freely and fearlessly, fulfilling the law of giving and receiving. Amen.